He sat in the shelter day after day, eyes full of sadness, watching families walk past him. No one wanted him. Too old, too serious, too broken, they said. But one man stopped, and when he read the tag on the dog's collar, everything changed. Forever, families moved from kennel to kennel, pointing, smiling, laughing as playful dogs leapt up to greet them. Tiny tails wagged furiously, noses pressed eagerly against the bars, each animal desperate to be chosen. But in the far corner, away from the noise and excitement, sat a dog who didn't move. His coat was sleek yet dull under the harsh fluorescent lights, and his eyes carried a weight that words could never capture. He didn't jump or bark like the others. He simply sat there, watching, as if he already knew the outcome. Day after day, families strolled past his cage, their gazes skimming over him without pause. Children pointed to fluffier puppies, parents leaned toward younger dogs, but no one spared him a second glance. Still, he waited, patient, silent, and heartbreakingly hopeful. He wasn't just another dog behind bars. He was the one everyone had already decided to forget. Families stopped in front of his kennel, but only for a moment. A mother shook her head gently, tugging her child's hand toward a smaller pup. "He looks too serious," she whispered, as though the dog couldn't hear. A father glanced at him, then shrugged. "He's probably too old. Let's find one with more energy." Their voices always carried the same excuses: too big, too intimidating, not what they were looking for. Meanwhile, across the aisle, puppies bounced and tumbled over each other, their clumsy play sparking laughter and instant affection. Papers rustled as adoption forms were filled out, cheers echoing when leashes clicked and dogs trotted off to their new homes. Each time, the shelter grew just a little quieter, but his corner remained unchanged. The dog lowered his head onto his paws, his amber eyes following the families as they disappeared through the exit. He didn't whine or bark for attention anymore. He had learned that hope was often met with disappointment. Still, deep in his heart, he waited for someone different, someone who might finally see him. Around his neck hung a simple blue collar, slightly worn at the edges, but still secure. Most visitors never noticed it. Their eyes skimmed past him too quickly. Even the shelter staff treated it as nothing more than a leftover from his past life. The small, round tag that dangled there seemed ordinary, just another ID, just another number. But if anyone had stopped long enough to look closer, they would have seen that the tag wasn't like the others. The letters etched into the metal weren't scratched from years of wear. They were carefully engraved, deliberate, meant to be read. It carried a message, one that no one had bothered to uncover. The dog would sit quietly, the tag glinting faintly under the flickering fluorescent light, as though waiting for the right set of eyes. Every day it hung there, untouched, holding a secret that could change everything. While others overlooked it, the tag waited in silence, just like the dog himself, until the moment someone finally cared enough to read it. On a quiet afternoon, when the shelter was nearly empty, a man stepped through the doors. He wasn't in a rush like most visitors. He moved slowly, hands tucked into his jacket pockets, his eyes scanning each kennel with quiet thoughtfulness. While others had come seeking excitement, he seemed to be searching for something deeper, though he wasn't sure what. Dogs leapt and barked, their paws scratching against metal bars, tails wagging furiously as if begging to be chosen. The man smiled at a few, offered a kind glance, but he didn't stop. His footsteps echoed softly as he walked down the aisle, his gaze steady, his expression unreadable. Then he reached the far corner. There, sitting silently, was the dog that everyone else had overlooked. Their eyes met through the bars, one pair tired and sorrowful, the other calm and curious. The man crouched down, leaning closer, studying the dog with genuine attention. For the first time in weeks, the dog lifted his head, his amber eyes locking onto the stranger's face. Something unspoken passed between them. The man leaned closer, his hand resting lightly on the bars. The dog didn't flinch or back away. Instead, he simply stared, quiet and patient, as if waiting for this exact moment. The man's eyes dropped to the collar, noticing the small tag glinting faintly under the dim light. Something about it caught his attention. Something others had missed that he reached through the bars carefully, fingers brushing against the cool metal. The tag turned slowly, revealing the engraved words etched deep into its surface. The man froze as he read them aloud, his voice low but steady. If you're reading this, I had a loved one. The weight of the message settled heavily in the silence. It wasn't just an identifier. It was a reminder, a plea, a fragment of a story left behind. This dog hadn't always been alone. He hadn't always been forgotten. He once belonged to someone who had cared enough to leave these words behind. The man's throat tightened. In that instant, the overlooked dog was no longer invisible. He carried a past, and perhaps a future worth saving. The man called over. One of the shelter workers, his voice still unsteady from reading the words. "Do you know anything about this dog's past?" he asked, holding the tag gently between his fingers. The worker paused, her expression softening. She sighed as, though she had told this story before, but rarely to someone who cared enough to listen. "He wasn't abandoned," she began quietly. "His owner passed away. They were inseparable, from what we've been told. When the man died, no family stepped forward to take the dog. He ended up here, and, well, people look at him and only see what they want to see. Too serious, too old. No one looks closer." The man glanced back at the dog, imagining the life he must have lived. The long walks, the nights curled by his owner's side, the loyalty that never wavered. The tag wasn't just metal. It was a lifeline, a message of love carved into steel, proof that this dog had once been someone's everything. For the first time in weeks, the dog's eyes held a flicker of hope. The man didn't hesitate. With a steady breath, he stood and told the staff, "I'll take him." The words seemed to hang in the air, almost unbelievable after so many weeks of rejection. The worker blinked in surprise, then nodded quickly, pulling out the adoption forms as the paperwork was signed. The dog remained still, watching from behind the bars. His ears perked when the man approached again, this time with a leash in hand. The cage door creaked open, a sound the dog had grown used to, but never for him. This time, it was different. The man clipped the leash gently onto the collar, his touch steady, reassuring. Slowly, the dog stepped forward, paws crossing the threshold he thought he'd never leave behind. Shelter workers stopped to watch, their faces soft with quiet smiles. The dog glanced back once, his amber eyes reflecting years of waiting and heartbreak. Then, with a hesitant wag of his tail, he turned toward the door, walking beside the man who had finally chosen to see him. That night, in his new home, the dog curled up on a soft bed placed carefully beside the man's chair. For the first time in months, his body seemed to relax, his breathing steady, his eyes finally closing in peace. The house was quiet, but it was filled with something the shelter never had: belonging. The man sat nearby, watching the gentle rise and fall of the dog's chest. He thought about how close this soul had been to slipping through the cracks, forgotten because no one bothered to look closer. All it had taken was reading a small tag, a simple message left behind by love that he leaned forward, whispering softly, "You're home now. You'll never be alone again." The dog's tail thumped weakly against the floor, as if he understood every word. And so, a story of rejection became one of redemption. Because sometimes, the difference between despair and hope is just one person willing to care. To anyone listening, adopt, don't overlook. Every dog has a story worth saving.